At the end of the American Revolution, the winds of change were blowing across North Georgia. This was Cherokee territory, a land on the verge of great transformation. Perched atop a hill overlooking the Cohutta Mountains and straddling two very different worlds, the Vann House stands as a testament to a time when two cultures collided. If these walls could speak, they would tell of Europeans settling in North Georgia and raising families with the Cherokees. They would tell of Cherokees embracing many of the European ways. And they would tell of James Vann, builder of this showplace of the Cherokee Nation, and of his son Joseph, two men of influence whose lives reflect the two worlds they lived in.
James Vann, a half-breed, lives near this town. From his wealth and extensiveness of his trade, together with his ability, he has become a leading character and is daily growing into consequence and importance in his nation. James Orr, 1798.
James Vann, son of a Cherokee woman and a Scots trader, was one of the most influential men in the Cherokee Nation. But even as he held to the traditional ways, he adopted many of the customs and beliefs brought to North Georgia by men like his father. Vann owned taverns, toll booths, and ferries. He traded furs. He operated sawmills as well as grist mills for grinding corn. And he quickly became the wealthiest man in the Cherokee Nation. To reflect his status, he hired a German architect to design a grand manor. He brought in a brick mason from Virginia, hired Cherokee craftsmen and skilled workers from the nearby Moravian mission, and used his African slaves to build the house. It took just over a year to complete. When he moved in, Vann threw a 4-day party to celebrate.
Today, the chiefs assembled at Vann's new house close by our place. Toward evening, we visited with Gentleman Tom, Sour Mush, Hatchet, Showboat, and 3 others. We cut several watermelons, and Brother Wolfhart brought a basket full of peaches. All were very friendly. Spring Place Moravian Mission Journal, August 1804.
The Moravians who lived across the road owed a great debt to James Vann. He helped persuade the Cherokee Council to allow their missionaries to settle in North Georgia. Vann supported their intent to educate Cherokee children, and he gave them the farm next door to his. Called Spring Place, the mission gradually gained acceptance within the Cherokee Nation. Through the years, more than 100 Cherokee students began their education at Spring Place. With the Spring Place mission established, James Vann turned his attention to other matters. The United States government wanted to expand the federal road system into Cherokee territory. Vann supported the road because he saw it as a way to further his business interests. He once again lobbied the Cherokee leadership, and the federal road soon became a reality. James Vann succeeded in 2 worlds, influencing leaders in the Cherokee Nation and gaining respect from the United States government. But he had a fatal flaw, a weakness for whiskey, which proved to be his undoing. In 1807 and 1808, as he drank more heavily, he became increasingly irrational and extremely violent. He killed 3 slaves, stabbed a wagon driver, and killed his brother-in-law in a duel. When he shot a United States soldier, James Vann became a wanted man, both within the Cherokee Nation and without. On February 20th, 1809, James Vann met his own violent end.
Vann had been lounging in Tom Buffington's tavern, about 56 miles from here. While there, he drank heavily and became involved in some altercations. He was most abusive and made violent threats. Toward midnight, he stepped out of the tavern and stood out before the open door. Suddenly a shot was fired from without, which pierced his heart. He fell lifeless to the floor without the perpetrator being seen. Thus ended the life of one who was feared by many and loved by few. We could not but commend his soul to God's mercy. Spring Place Mission Journal, February 1809.
James Vann's son, Joseph, was only 11 years old when his father died. Although he had other children, James left all of his homes and businesses to Joseph, earning him the nickname Rich Joe. When he turned 21, Joseph Vann took control of the vast wealth his father had left in trust for him. Eventually, he had more than 800 acres of land in cultivation, worked by 100 African slaves. There were 95 outbuildings here, including slave cabins, barns, smokehouses, corn cribs, mills, taverns, and blacksmith shops. Joe Vann quickly rose to prominence in his own right, not only in the Cherokee Nation, but throughout the United States as well.
Very late in the evening, the overseer, Mr. Birdwell, came to announce that the President of the United States and his party had arrived at Joseph Vann's. President James Monroe later told us that there were so many in his party that they did not wish to worry us for a night's lodging. Spring Place Mission Journal, May 1819.
Like his father before him, Chief Joseph Vann became an influential politician. He served on the Cherokee National Committee for many years, and at the Cherokee National Capital of New Cohutta, just 17 miles from the Vann House, he served on the committee that drafted the Cherokee Constitution in July of 1827. Although he was much more even-tempered, Joseph Vann was like his father James in many ways. Both excelled at business, both became leaders in the Cherokee government, and both supported the mission school.
Our church bell that our former pupil Joseph Vann bought for us was rung for the first time on the first Sunday in Advent. It has a clear tone and can be heard from a distance of several miles. It enables us to summon our neighbors to services.
As different as the two groups were, the Moravian missionaries and the Cherokees nonetheless made good neighbors. But by 1832, the uneasy alliance between the Indians and many other groups of white settlers was crumbling. With the tentacles of European colonization reaching deeper into Indian lands, the Cherokees of North Georgia found themselves squeezed into increasingly smaller areas. In direct violation of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, white surveyors began dividing Cherokee lands into plots to be awarded to white settlers in a lottery, and lottery winners arrived to claim their stakes.
This morning a man came and showed us a warrant, which he said gave him clear title to our property. Cursing and swearing, he demanded possession of our houses. He claimed all land had been taken from the Indians, and since Spring Place belonged to Joseph Vann, we had lost title to it. We refused to surrender until we are forced to do so. Spring Place Mission Journal, Christmas Eve, 1832.
On January 13, 1833, the Georgia militia arrived to evict the missionaries from Spring Place. Conditions continued to deteriorate in the Cherokee Nation as Georgia passed laws to force Cherokees off their own lands. Joseph Vann inadvertently violated one such law when he attempted to hire a white overseer for his plantation. This provided the excuse the state of Georgia had been waiting for. Spencer Riley, a white boarder staying with Vann, was in the house when the troops arrived.
On the 2nd of March, William Bishop, as agent of the state of Georgia, summoned some 20 men and placed in their hands muskets and furnished them ammunition. I heard Bishop demand possession from Mr. Vann. By this time I was at the head of the stairs, and I called down to Bishop, that there was no use for any violent measures or bloodshed. As soon as they saw me, they fired upon me. I ran out of sight, so they aimed at the spot where they supposed I was and shot the banister to pieces. William Bishop procured a flaming firebrand and threw it upon the platform of the stairs, exclaiming that he would burn me out or burn me up. After the fire made some progress, they realized that if the house were destroyed, then the bishops would have no house to occupy. They requested that Mr. Vann go up and extinguish the fire.
Joe Vann and his family, forced from their home, headed west and settled near the Arkansas River in Oklahoma. Soon after, the United States government began rounding up Cherokees by the thousands in preparation for their removal to Oklahoma.
Cherokees, the President of the United States has sent me with a powerful army to cause you, in obedience to the Treaty of 1835, to join that part of your people who are already established on the other side of the Mississippi. The full moon of May is already on the wane, and before another shall have passed away, every Cherokee, man, woman, and child must be in motion to join their brethren in the far west.
Feeding an insatiable appetite for land, white settlers pushed the Indians out of the places they had occupied for generations. Only a small number managed to remain on isolated parcels of land in the mountains of North Carolina. In the summer of 1838, most Cherokees were rounded up and put in stockades where influenza, cholera, and other diseases created a living nightmare. Driven from their homelands, the Cherokees were herded 800 miles west. By the time they reached the Western Territories, 1/4 of the Cherokee Nation had died from disease and from starvation.
On Tuesday evening, we fell in with a detachment of the poor Cherokee Indians. We found the road literally filled with a procession for about 3 miles. The sick and feeble were carried in wagons. A great many ride on horseback, and multitudes go on foot. Even aged females, apparently nearly ready to drop into the grave, were traveling with heavy burdens attached to their back, on the sometimes frozen ground and muddy roads with no covering for the feet except what nature had given them. We learned from the inhabitants on the road that they buried 14 or 15 at every stopping place. New York Observer, January 26, 1839.
One of the early casualties on the Trail of Tears was James Vann's daughter, Delilah Van McNair. Of the thousands of Cherokees buried along the way, hers is one of the few graves ever marked. Today, the Chief Vann House stands as a reminder of what can happen when greed and racism are allowed to triumph over goodness and human decency. As one of the few remnants of Cherokee culture in Georgia, it represents a time of great accomplishments and enormous human failures. Here, in what was once the heart of the Cherokee Nation, the Chief Vann House bears witness both to the spirit of the family who lived here and to the history of the Cherokee people. People of two nations who, in spite of it all, continue to prosper. If these walls could speak, they would tell of two worlds, two cultures that were not allowed to coexist in one land. And they would tell of the legacy of the Cherokee Nation, a legacy of survival.
The time will come when the remnants of our once happy and improving nation will be viewed by posterity with curious and gazing interest, as relics of a brave and noble race. We may die, but the great Cherokee Nation will be saved. Elias the Buck Boudinot, 1835.